Ready? All right, I'm calling meeting to order. Rose, Aaron here. Conville.
Here.
Byrne,
Here.
Volker.
Here.
Mangold. Stone.
Here.
Hughes. Reese. Sesto. We have a quorum. The minutes were sent out, so everybody's had a chance to read the minutes.
Move to approve.
Moved by Judy,
Second to Peter Prince.
seconded by Tom. Any omissions, corrections, additions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, old business. We're gonna reconvene the hearing for Dunkin' Donuts. You have the floor, gentlemen. Whoever wants to come up and tell us who you are and what your plan is. This is a conditional use hearing on the drive-through.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Eric Carlson, I'm the architect with DCA Architects. This is Oxford Company. He is the franchisee along with his brother. Slide that on there. So yes, we are proposing a Dunkin' Donuts on the property right in front of the Holiday Inn. Property is the RP Lumber property there. And it's a 3-tenant retail building. It's going to have a Dunkin' basket on the end cap with the drive-through and the drive-through phone. This will appear for tonight. But I did want to talk real briefly. I know there was a little bit of confusion, I think, last time in regards to when you're out there looking at that site in the current condition, it looks really small. And that's partially because the parking for the hotel is into this property line. So this exhibit here shows, I can use this one here real quick. This exhibit here shows, here's this existing parking lot for that property line actually is through the center of that parking island there, which is about 60 feet from what's there today. So it's almost about a third bigger than what it appears to be out there currently. So that's what that exhibit shows.
Got to be 60 feet from the end of where the grass area is?
Yeah, so this current parking curbing
Yes,
is right here.
I'm familiar
This
with it.
distance between this curb and this property line is about
Okay,
60.
I understand, thank you.
So it's just kind of stripped off some of the extraneous information here. Same thing, here's that property line. We're proposing as a dual lane drive-through coming through the property, this bypass lane all the way through, and then the drive-through lane. Some of the big differences between this Dunkin' is replacing the other Dunkin', relocating over to this building. Some of the big differences as far as the drive-through and operationally, this is a Dunkin' has a next gen model now that they've come out with, and they consistently go through updates, and a lot of that is based on speed of service and operations and things that they're noticing that aren't efficient in the store. So they're working always through trying to make their drive-throughs more efficient. So the next gen is the current version. They've streamlined their coffee lines a little bit. They used to have 2 coffee lines. They've streamlined that down to 1, so the speed of service is a little faster. One of the other things that they've done is the current store has the menu board versus the pickup is only 3 cars. So that's a pretty tight time. That's not real efficient. Dunkin' used to have a 5-car from the menu board to the pickup window. They've now actually increased that to 6 recently. So this takes into account that newest model, which is the 6 cars, which does speed that up even from the 5 that they had before.
So where's that located on that diagram?
So the menu board is back here. And then the other part I haven't talked about is another thing that they've done is they've done a dual window. So not only do you have the order and menu board here, you've got the pay window here. and then the pickup window here. So from this pay window, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars, and then you've got the pickup window is the 6th car. So that will help speed that up quite a bit. I've been spending some time before the meeting, watching cars through the Dunkin' and trying to look at how long it takes for somebody to go through the pay process to when they have the order. And that's a good chunk of time. It was anywhere from 45 seconds to a minute sometimes where they're already pulled up to the pickup window and you can see them exchanging money and then waiting for the order. So when you're in a, you know, a little bit of a non-peak time and not quite as much staff for support while somebody's ordering and paying to making the order, it's a little slower, but that's still a pretty decent, time chunk where it's kind of wasted time because they're digging through their money and somebody's trying to get the order out. So this does speed it up. I think on the average of 15 to 40 seconds is what they are determining that is speeding up their drive-through. The other thing is the existing store has, I know it has some issues sometimes getting backed up in the Kroger parking lot, and my assessment on that, I've got an exhibit here that kind of covers a handful of different drive-throughs, but the Dunkin' is down here. So even in reality, it's not a horrible condition. It just happens to be a busy store, which is great for us. But we've got about 12 cars that can stack at the window as somebody's picking up and paying before they start interfering with that parking lot. But by general Dunkin' standard, that's not horrible. But with that single window, it does happen on occasion. So they do anticipate that not being an issue anyway with the speed of service and some of the other.
So how many do you get when you go to this configuration?
So you would have, so you have the 6, 7 cars before you start having to implement some other tactics. So we've got, in this model, the busy time is usually in the morning. So these retail stores are most likely not going to be open. So what they do now in some of the other locations is they implement some cone system and some directional. Thank you. I'm like right at the perfect height. It's actually coming right through the top. That's okay. I'll just.
Move over. Yeah, there you go.
Done.
You shift over lane.
Yeah. So in the times when they have the peak times and it's a little bit busier, they would convert the site to a one-way flow. And it shouldn't impact these businesses because it's going to be generally early in the morning, so they're not there. So this site would become a one-way flow site. They would put some cones out here and a sign that directs people into the site, around the bypass lane, and then into the line and through the drive-through. And then they'd exit out the store.
So then you're proposing to have some kind of like do not enter sign or something there?
Yeah, so in that time, they would put some cones out here and then a sign there that says right turn. And so that would direct the flow this way. So when you have that, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 cars, which is one more than that existing site anyway, with more efficient flow. And technically you get another 4 or 5 cars over here before you even start impeding that. So
If I get on the, how many cars do you often have in the morning? Do you have like
So in the
13?
morning, so there's, anywhere from like 7 to 10
Okay,
in the queue. Now, I think a lot of the updates that we're gonna be doing with just with operations internally, just with the flow, I think that's gonna, even if it's 10, it's gonna be quick,
Yeah.
quick moving 10, The other thing, I mentioned the line posters.
I haven't gotten there. Yeah, but you can go ahead.
So, I mean, one of the things that when Eric was talking about, especially in the peak times, we are gonna have line busters, which are handheld, automated, order system that you've seen in Portillo's or like, Chick-fil-A. They implement those to speed it up. So during peak times, we are gonna have line busters in, in queue to speed up that process. So if we do get a big order of, a massive order, which we do sometimes in the drive-through, we could pull those people out, have them stand on the side just so we can continue the flow of service. Plus, we could take in more orders. We have enough, efficient people inside of the system. We should be able to pull those out a lot faster. So I think with that and the updated technology that we are facing, plus the two windows, I think our speed of service is going to be drastically different from what we are right now. And that is one of the reasons why we were moving into a new lot to give us that flexibility of getting more people in.
So you're going 24 hours and your drive-through is going to be open all 24 hours. Is your peak time about what, 6 to 9?
Probably like 7 to 11,
Yeah.
7 to 10,
7 to 10?
Yeah.
And you're saying you can hold, how many, 12 or 13 cars in that design there?
13 from here, 17 to 18 if you go all the way back to here.
Because at your current site, you've had almost 20. in
Yeah,
line.
I was gonna say, I've seen more than 10.
Yeah, this is usually the standard 20-foot stacking. When you're doing an exhibit like this and an engineering exhibit, you use a 20-foot car-to-car stack. So in real life, when they pack them in, that's probably why you're seeing more over there. 12 is what works with the 20-foot dimension per car. But yeah, you can pack them in a little tighter than that. But that's kind of the standard size.
And you're gonna have a portable bird taker working that line to move it.
To move it. So we're gonna have people, right where they enter to direct them to where they need to go. Plus we'll have a portable handheld order taking system throughout the queue to move them faster. The other thing we're gonna do in the peak times is gonna reserve these as holding spots. So those orders that are taking longer, we could fill them up and keep going, taking the orders and having the people come to the window without stalling there.
So you're what, first 2-3 spots there along the,
Probably like a couple of spots
Yeah.
during the peak time, just to kind of alleviate that rush.
Well, I'll be honest with you, my main concern was stacking up traffic back to that stoplight at that busy intersection.
Right.
And that was my main objection.
Right, so I think with this, because we're gonna use the bypass lane as the bypass lane to loop around, I don't see a scenario where we're leading into that intersection at all.
Very good.
I got a question. Why not, most of these fast food restaurants that I've been visiting throughout my territory in the Midwest is actually an entrance like that, is that they actually put a permanent curb there. So you're forced to go all the way around, then go into the drive-through lane. That way you don't have any chance of backing up. Is there any consideration of doing that? Because that way, now you don't have to worry about cones, you don't have to worry about people coming out with a thing, because you're actually forcing people to stay away from come out of the intersection or come out of the main roadway and then go loop all the way around. So it's naturally flowing through. Has there been any consideration, or do you have any properties like that?
We did consider a one-way flow, kind of keeping that one-way flow, but with these other two tenants, they wanted to keep the flexibility to not have to force somebody around who's gonna be occupying one of these tenants or those customers for one of those tenants. So for the few times that, there's a lot of things that are being modified from that existing one, but for the few times where they do have that kind of backup issue, it didn't make sense to change the whole site just for those amount of times, or at least from their opinion.
Do you have a notion who the other tenants will be?
Not at this juncture.
Really? Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
they haven't-
okay.
They haven't marketed.
So I've seen this kind of module stuff before, and I always thought it was like a group that were simpatico. It's like real.
Yeah, no, not
Okay.
this case, no, yeah.
Those buildings are very specific, though. That's why I was asking.
Yeah. But just to reiterate, there's really there are almost really 5 different components to this new building that are all implemented to speed up the service. The distance between the drive-through, the pickup window and the pay station, the 2 windows, the line buster option, the one-way flow, and then of course now a lot of times it's just training too, and getting more efficiency with the training.
And what type of landscaping system do you have?
I didn't bring
And your signage will conform, of course, with our
Correct.
sign
Yeah.
ordinance.
Yes, yeah, we have the compliance with that.
Yeah, but we're here just for the conditional use and the
Right.
right now.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
I do have, I am curious though, all right, if you get, your average order time is what, a minute and a half, 2 minutes? How long?
About 150 seconds.
150 seconds.
So that's gonna go down to, we are saying with all the implementation, I think it'll go down to like 110, 120.
So if I'm car 17 on your busiest day, I'm waiting 15, 20 minutes to get my order? Because you got so many cars in front of me?
Not necessarily, the 120 seconds from the time you place the order, 120 seconds from the time you place the order.
So from
From
here to here, or to here rather, is the 120 seconds.
Yeah, but I'm talking, I'm back there at the corner.
Yeah, so you'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, so you're 20 minutes potentially, which usually what happens is not every order is done, and some of them.
I'm a black coffee with a
Yeah.
plain donut.
That's it. So, well, another good thing about having the two windows is for a simple order like that, you could just cash and take out right there. They don't even have to worry about going to the second lane. We'll be able to expedite those types of quick orders a lot easier. Plus, now we've seen with COVID is a lot of on-the-go orders. So on-the-go orders gives us the ability to take in the order beforehand, even before they get to the store. So we're seeing anywhere from like 10% increase right now. Total 10% of our sales are coming through on the go, which is significant. We're not
That's through the app, right?
through the app. So now we have the flexibility of making the order, keeping it ready, even before they coming in. So that is significant for us to get that into these. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to promote them to come in or have curbside pickup too, so they can come in and out without even getting into the queue.
Okay, well, I think our biggest concern is what Judy mentioned is, and we've had this with other drive-throughs in town, we're not just picking on you, is the drive-throughs backing up onto the major thoroughfare. And, you know, somehow this bypass lane not working and then them backing up and then going back to 23. And we can't have you backing up 23 up there. There's too much traffic going up that hill.
Plus you have the RP Lumber coming in and out with their trucks and, you know, the hotel clientele in and out with their cars and the restaurant across the street.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see that at all happening. By the time you would have to get there, you'd be, because even if you're backed up here, you're gonna have people that are gonna get backed up here. You got 40, 50 cars and nobody's gonna wait that long.
right.
I like John's idea though, of making this a permanent one-way in and out, because I think that would solve your problem with the cone thing and more, because that's the other thing is you got to send somebody out there, a kid out there every morning to put the cones. And then what happens if that kid doesn't come in that day and you only got two
Right, so
employees
we
working inside?
have a store in Wheeling, Illinois right now.
Okay.
That we use to implement the cone system in there. And when I say cones, they're not like cones that you can just like put up and take out. They're actually bolted on the ground. So they're actually kind of like fixtures. So when it's semi-permanent where you can put it in, fix it into the ground. And then when it's, you know, snow season or something like that, when the snow removal will come, we're able to take it out without having any issues. Snow plowing is the biggest challenge of having something permanent like that. Second of all is because it's gonna be permanent like that, there are gonna be times where we might just leave it. If the flow is good, we might just leave it for the next day. If it's the weekend, we might leave it Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then take it down on Monday afternoon. You know what I mean? So if we anticipate a busier weekend, we can leave it there.
So it's one that you come in and you can twist and
Twist
put
it
it
and
and
put it.
pull it out.
That's nice.
Makes more sense.
That might work.
Because the cones right now, if you use the regular cones, they're gonna fly away. That's the biggest problem. Like someone knock it down, yeah.
Wind.
It's the wind and face, so these are more permanent, semi-permanent. So we have the flexibility of taking them out.
The biggest concern is getting the kid out there to put them out in the morning. You know,
That's his problem.
I know.
Again, so if we anticipate or we know that it's gonna be a busy weekend, long weekend, whatever it is, we just leave them out there. for that. But it also gives us the flexibility of having issues if we do need to take them out for whatever reason. Snow is our biggest issue with those permanent things, is to get that.
All right, well, I'd be more in favor of something like that than just the standard construction cone that you see, you know, the fluorescent orange. That you do, they get knocked over, they get
Exactly.
run over, whatever.
It's more like those flaps, you know, like those, if I seen them in, but they're like little skinnier flaps.
Yeah, it's like a lane marker almost.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
and the Dunkin's very stable, as you know, so once they get their pattern of their times, it's generally the same. Almost every, Mondays are the same, Tuesdays are the same, Wednesdays are the same for the most part.
We just have to get people trained to do this,
Right.
okay? After they've been through it a few times, they'll know how to begin works. Yeah.
Right.
That's good.
All right, anybody else have any more questions for,
No.
okay? Nothing? All right, gentlemen, you can sit down. We'll do the public part now. Anybody from the public got any comment? Any questions, Mr. Mayor?
Doesn't look like it for another meeting.
All right,
Oh, you're just sitting around, huh?
Oh, yeah.
hanging out, came in to hang out with us. We miss being up here, right? All right, well, I think you got a good plan. I mean, right now you got a horrible drive-through situation, because I've been out there, I've had to personally go up and tell people, hey, the line's back there. Because they pull off at 23 and they get it, and there's like 3 cars, and they're like, oh, hey. I'm like, no, there's 10 cars back here, guys. Sorry, you know. So anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Go for it, John.
All right, so I recommend to the city council the conditional use for a drive-through in lot 3 of the RP Lumber Company Planning Unit Development. And let me go down here. Outlining the staff, the findings of the fact outlined in the staff report, and recommend approval of the conditional use for the drive-through. I already said that, so it's kind of a backwards thing.
And it's seconded by Todd. Any further discussion on this one? I just think the permanent cone thing, that's the way to go. All right. Anything else? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. This will go to the next city council meeting, and they'll take it up at their meeting. So that'll be what, the first part of June, the first Tuesday.
That's Tuesday.
Mhm.
Yeah, good luck.
You got a start date for your building yet?
Yesterday, but yeah, we're working with, two contractors, and sure, we want to get all this done.
We've already implemented our construction documents, so we're ahead of normally where we would be at this stage, so hopefully we'll be in the permit.
Awesome.
All right.
All right, take care.
Good luck, gentlemen.
All right.
Next up, we have our discussion regarding the comprehensive plan. And you're up.
You. Way to stand on the microphone, or can I stand anywhere?
You can go anywhere. We're gonna be looking there.
My eyes are getting old, so I need to get a little bit closer to it. So I can see it. That's why I'm asking.
I'm going to.
All right, so my name's Mike Hoffman. If you remember me from a few months back, we've been working on the comprehensive plan. The plan's gonna feature 3 key areas that you have not spent a lot of time looking at. Well, it's actually 1 you have spent a lot of time looking at, 2 you haven't. The downtown area, particularly the riverfront, we've asked to take another look at that. So I spent some time looking at that with you last time we were here. You gave us a great input. I'll summarize that, talk about the different options. We're looking at the Norris corridor, we're going to do and make some improvements in that area. And then we're looking at the interchange with I-80 and 71 and what type of future land use would make sense in that interchange area.
Working?
You know,
Try pointing it up.
Pointed at something.
Try pointing it up there. There, I cannot.
I have an alternative one.
Option B.
Switching sides, turn this.
Oh. I see what she's not right here.
Well, I'll see. I want you to just give me a heads up. And I'll get from here.
Okay, so that's fine. All right, so downtown riverfront, go ahead. So this just shows you some of the issues that are in the area. Obviously, we've got a situation where we've got a bunch of slope in there where you can see all the little yellow lines coming together. We have those big red boxes, which were, the kind of permanent easements that the state has. I understand that those are close to gone now.
Close, very close. Yes.
So that is a big deal, because that really gives us a lot more flexibility in what we can do. So that's a very large space. The blue dashing lines, the one closest to the river is the floodway, the one farthest to the north is the floodplain. But obviously, those are major issues that are impacting the design of this thing, and it will continue to be so. So, next slide. So, you guys have spent a lot of time looking at this area already, have an awesome plan. Got a lot of comments that were leading us back in the direction of the existing plan, actually last time. Everybody likes the kind of common event space. I think there's great opportunities for that. I agree. I think there is a lot of great opportunities for that. So I like that central concept of that plan. You like the idea of the street where it is because it's separated in public and private space. So I took note of that. We generally like the idea of keeping the street straight coming in front of the Y. To provide access and kind of actual views into the area. And then we talked a little bit about the riverfront, and we threw out the idea of maybe some boat dock areas on the main channel of the river. You guys said, no, that ain't gonna work because of the flow of the river and everything else. Heard all those things. But main point is that this is a good plan. So we talked, I think, towards the end of the meeting, is maybe we come out of this thing with two alternate plans, right? One is maybe we keep this one and then we look at some other alternatives. So we have done that. So next slide. This is where we were last time, just some feedback we got again on this plan. Previously, we decided that this connection here to Walker was certainly not necessary, so that's gone. We decided that we wanted to make sure that the buildings we were showing were wide enough to have interior underground parking. They are, so I confirm that. We want to make sure that we're providing some views into this area rather than blocking them all with buildings and structures. And we want to make sure that we're taking advantage of all the properties. So we previously had not shown anything particularly south of Main and I guess it would be east of LaSalle there. We want to make sure that we're showing future development on those blocks as well. Okay, so next slide. So this is a refined version of what we had previously, taking into consideration a number of things. All right, does that work? That works. All right. So it still has canal coming straight down south. Still has this big circular open space. We really like the form and the idea of that. So we really kind of kept that. What we did do was we got rid of the boat bay, if you will, here, the little inlet that we had here for boat parking. Realizing that there is some boat parking here now with your boat club that you've got there, and maybe that could be expanded a little bit along the Fox River part of the area here, but we're not doing anything in here. We've still got the buildings up in here. What we wanted to do in this concept is really try to pull people kind of coming in from downtown along Clinton. In this area, we actually popped in a couple of additional small buildings to kind of increase and enhance that pedestrian environment coming in. We've added some structures up in this area here to provide opportunities, whether it's a boutique hotel or some additional residential or what have you. We've sketched those into this area here. We did also want to think a little bit about if we have a major event here, how do we handle parking and those kind of issues? So we did show additional parking here and actually remove a building that we previously had shown in that area. But to make sure that we have plenty of room for parking. It's kind of an interesting area because you got the elevation changes of LaSalle and that kind of come in there. So it would kind of be tucked underneath the slope. So I think it's probably a pretty decent spot to look at parking opportunities. We have, the idea of a splash pad, kind of botanical garden area here. We certainly could have a separate playground area here. We talked to the Y there, going to have some play activities here, but they like the idea of some outdoor play space here. We certainly can integrate that into the concept right in this general area. I think it's important to understand the elevations here, right? So this is keeping Woodward Drive right where it is today, but enhancing and improving some of this area here. So you would have obviously kind of front onto Woodward Drive, and then you would have, essentially residential on top of that with some private balconies outlooking this beautiful, gorgeous park space, which we think would create some really high value. With the idea that we could have some rooftop patios and gardens, so maybe the end of these buildings is pretty much, office space coming up, maybe retail on the ground floor, office space, and then have a restaurant up on the top level. Out again, looking out all this, the river and over this open space, which would be really kind of interesting and an unusual amenity that really, I can't think of too many places where it exists right now. So those are some of the concepts. Can I go to the next slide just because I want to talk to the elevations a little bit. So this is kind of looking at a cross section, right? So here's Main Street as it exists today. Here's the buildings between Woodward and Main Street as they exist today. Here's the idea of that space between Woodward and that, filled in a little bit with some buildings to kind of enhance that pedestrian environment as you're walking down. Then the building that we would have here with some balconies out here, perhaps some patio space. Then you've got some slope that we got to take out that we talked about there in that 80-foot area that would have some paths meandering and then coming down to that open lawn that would then be going out towards the river for amphitheater space. This is obviously the plan that you currently have adopted, essentially flips this. It moves this building a little bit more this way, moves Woodward Drive down this direction here. So it is a different option. We didn't want to do exactly the same thing that your current plan does. I want to provide another option. I have seen places where this works. There's areas, particularly up along the Fox River and the Batavia, St. Charles area, where you've got structures like this that front on common open space along the river, creates some high value amenities for residential living that is pretty desirable. So that is an option. If you go to the next slide, really, to me, it comes down to two things originally, and now it's really only one thing, right? Originally, it was the issue of the easement and how we could work with that. That seems to be a non-issue at this point. So really, it comes down to some cost issues. So the column that you see in the middle there is the cost estimates out of your existing plan, right? Bottom line numbers, $27 to $30 million. Old vision, old cost. If we take the elements that we're showing in our concept, significantly less cost, more like the $10 to $15 million range. Now, I'm not saying that I like the original plan. I'm not opposed if you guys want to stick with that. Awesome, and maybe that remains the vision. But I do think realistically, it's good to have alternatives, right? If we can't find a way to raise $30 million, but we can raise $15 million, well, here's what we could do with $15 million, that kind of thing. So I'm kind of leaning in the direction of having two options, relatively similar. Honestly, they aren't radically different. There are differences, clearly. But that is where we are today on that segment. So maybe flip back to our concept map, Doug, and let's talk about it. Or whichever one you guys want to talk to.
I like that.
And a majority of that difference is the removal of the waterway.
Yeah, so that's probably the biggest single difference, and the other difference is how we arrange the buildings right here, right? We kept Woodward Drive here so we don't have the expense of redoing that whole road down here. Those are probably the two biggest differences in the plan, honestly.
So where the buildings front doors are.
So, yeah, the front door of these buildings would front on the elevation and the existing Woodward Drive.
Mhm.
And then the backside would be fronting onto the park with decks and balconies, those kind of things facing the park.
And parking for those buildings is underground?
Underneath the buildings, yeah.
So what does it look like for those buildings? So those buildings' backyards face the park, not their fronts.
Right,
Well, this is a multi-story, go to the next elevation.
It'd be the balcony.
their balcony.
You have balconies actually facing Woodward on the upper levels and balconies facing the park and the river
What's on the main ground of the, facing the park?
Yeah, main ground facing the park, probably some outdoor patio space in some cases it will just be landscape right up to that.
There'll be commercial retail. You're envisioning.
But you would enter that building from the alley.
You enter it from Woodward.
Yeah, would it-
And what would be the proposed small buildings on the north side of Woodward D?
Yeah, these guys, probably small retail shops, coffee shop, restaurant, bike shop, whatever.
Square footage wise, how big of a building?
Relatively small, square footage, but I guess it's probably in 1,000 to 3,000 square foot range.
So I was the person who brought up the road, and this does not have a road in front of it now on the riverfront.
On the riverfront side is not, no. I mean, there are certainly walks wide enough to accommodate, vehicles for service and those kind of things, but it's not street.
So in thinking through that original plan, it was so profound to me and was presented to us that buildings in that position should face the river. They shouldn't face the back end of Main Street. And that's what they're facing, is the back end of Main Street. And so that's what I can't recreate my thoughts about how that presents itself. And I remember that being ingrained in us to suggest that if you don't have a road in front of this, it's not public, it's private, it feels private. Does that have logic to you?
Well, Woodward is the public street, right? So it does front on a public street.
It fronts Woodward, which fronts the back end of Main Street.
I know, that's why this shows, that this is really well landscaped here. The problem would be up at this end, it is more parking lot in the back end of those buildings here. And this stretch, it wouldn't be so bad. This stretch.
What will be your buffer between those buildings and the park?
The buffer between these buildings.
No, yeah, between that building there.
Yeah,
No, not that one, the one down there.
this one.
That one there and the park to the south. What would be your buffer?
So you got slope, right? There's significant slope right in here that we have to take up. So it'll be kind of stepping and terracing down. So that it wouldn't be, there wouldn't be active, none of this in here other than a walk this would be all pretty much heavily landscaped.
But landscaping or a wall or some kind of fencing?
Yeah, probably not fencing, but great elevations with walls and landscape. Yeah.
Mhm.
I got it. Oh. Dan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Early on, when we were looking at the original plan, we had a public meeting. And the question was asked, should it be the front facing the river or the back facing the river? And I remember vividly, the guy said, it's 50-50. And Wayne Eichelkraut says where he travels down Myrtle Beach, almost all of them front the street. And the restaurant dining area is on the back.
that's right.
Yeah, with no streets and no traffic, so they enjoy it.
I would agree with that, Dan, because when I've been in the south, maybe somebody else too, but the balconies and all of the, I want to say, they all face the water so that you have the amenities of the water and watching the boats, whereas the fronts are just pretty flat, walk in, up, go to the elevator to your unit.
well, I think the concern when you came before, they were thinking mainly townhomes down there with a garage and having a row of garages along that street. And you walk and driving by and that's all you see is garage doors.
No way.
Yeah, so, I mean,
I got a question.
go ahead.
So what would happen if some developer said, well, you know what, I like all this, but I want more land closer to Main Street. Now, what I was thinking is the college and the automotive repair.
Carlson.
Carlson, thank you. Yeah, in the corner there building. And I don't know if those are historic structures or not. I don't think so. But what happens if to say that was removed, what would change the landscape of how this would all arrange? Would that make a major difference in how that would lay out if somebody said, I want, that land, if it was up for sale? Just to throw it out there, because
If you're saying if somebody wanted to develop.
that quadrant right there, yeah. I mean, part of the whole overall development of being down on where the proposed buildings are at, that'd be part of the development.
Yeah, I don't know that it would change it dramatically. I think what I would want to do is I'd want to make sure that we got some additional landscape space in there, green this up and not have this big parking lot there.
Right.
So I'd want to be able to do that. But outside of that, and the other thing I guess I would try to do is really try to emphasize getting people from the core of downtown into this area of pedestrian environment, right? So there's only, that's why I put these buildings in here, just to enhance that pedestrian walk down there. But you might want to try to do that a little bit more if we had flexibility to do that.
That does bring in an interesting twist because, Mr. Mayor, how long is IVCC's lease on their building? They got another 10?
No. We only do 2 or 3 years at a time.
So, I mean, you could have somebody come in and want to develop that whole block at some point. You know,
I don't think we've ever thought about that. I mean, we're just trying to get the riverfront, the old Central Schools back.
well, in our comprehensive plan, we've designated this area as civic use for that block.
College is a civic use.
I know, but I'm just saying that whole block is for civic use. So, you know, I don't know.
I was just throwing it out there just to see what your opinion would be, and how it would change I mean, it may never happen, it may happen, I just thought, somebody on Main Street there, if they could get that quadrant, or at least a portion of it, they could make that a good entrance to their development.
Absolutely.
So I'm just throwing it out there,
I think that's far off in the future.
Yeah.
I like the idea of, because we're planning without a vision, and there'll be people approaching us who have a vision greater than anything we could have imagined. And so I like the option of knowing that you can present to developers, these are 2 different ways to look at this riverfront. And they'll come up with, if we hand them the canvas, they'll create it. I also think that, what became so profound to me also was, I'm on the Y board, and we're taking advantage of this being this is identified nationally as an underdeveloped area. What is that designation? It has designation for being underdeveloped, and it's noticed by developers because they know they can funding of different types for that. And I wonder if some of that can be city, maybe one of you two could address. I mean, are there grant funds for Woodward if we had to move that for a developer? Are there grants available? Dave or Mayor, do you have an idea of that? I mean, I know that you're always looking.
Moving Woodward Drive is a very expensive.
But what if
But you're gonna have to rebuild it anyway for this. Pretty much, if you do this development.
Not really.
I don't think so.
No, there's the
It just-
streetscape stuff that you can pursue ITAMP and other grants to fund that.
But what if there was a grant funding for that? Then you could, if a developer say, I really like the other development. If there were funds available to move Woodward, then that would be.
The other development was laid out, we didn't own, couldn't build on. College was on, other people owned property, and a veteran memorial was on.
Well, Veterans Memorial would be tremendously enhanced by putting that somewhere in this development, I think, in a better spot. I've never.
Thought there was Vietnam vets in.
They might be happy to have it moved so people can see it.
Yeah.
I was here 5 years before I recognized there was something there.
I completely agree with you. I talked to one or 2 veterans in the process, that basically said, don't touch that thing.
I mean, look, you're talking about one little piece on the end.
I completely agree. I think relocating it as a part of this would make brilliant sense, but just be aware of that.
I mean, you got the place along the river there.
And I respect that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, can you put up your slide on costs again?
Yep.
All right, you got the harbor, which is 2.3 to 3 million, which is gonna be going in your plan.
Yeah. Well, we're still doing some stuff. along-
You're gonna do some along Fox
Not
Road.
nearly as much, right?
Yeah.
Harbor walks.
And then, earthwork is greatly reduced.
Yes, we're not doing the harbor.
So you're saving probably $6-7 million there
Right.
in cost. But you don't, streets and parking is pretty much about the same,
And it's
a little bit less.
It's less because of the road, but we still have a parking lot, we still have a lot of internal stuff.
Well, the one parking lot's already there. The one parking lot on the east side of it is already there. You're gonna expand it
Yes.
to the west, into the, where the soccer field is now. The only thing I'm not digging is the fact that you're still gonna have, you can go back to your slide now, Doug, is you're still having a private building between the park and the public way up on top. So the people that own that building, whoever it might be,
Yeah.
they get the benefit of the park,
Yeah,
not the community.
exactly. I agree.
That's some of this, I mean, there's how many different walkways come into that park?
Yeah, but the majority of people, Pete, are coming along Woodward. They're coming along and they're going over to the bridge. They're the ones that are driving by. They won't even know there's a park
I
there
know.
until they hit the bridge. And when you get to the bridge, there's a 4-foot concrete wall between you and the bridge, you and the
So what
park.
we were trying to do with the layout, the design was make sure that we did do whatever, had to have views into it, so from here.
That's a
from here.
5-second view as you're going over
I
the
know,
bridge.
I know, it's limited. You're right. I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying that, you know, we did try to get new corridors in here. It is obviously open on the east and the west, but that they, you know, let's do block there a little bit. The other thing I would say with that though, is that it creates significant value in those structures for those people that are buying, right? We're gonna need the value of that new construction to help pay.
I understand. I understand that. That was the whole concept of the commercial up on top to pay for all the rest of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then now I look at this and you scratched it, but the YMCA has one entrance in and out. I mean, you come around the north side of it, but there's still basically one entrance in and out of the Y. You scratched the entrance and exit over there on Walker.
We did, yes.
It's almost a logical thing to put in another entrance over there on the other side of the bank. I don't know. I mean, you'd have to improve Walker Street for that little half a block to make it work.
Yeah.
But you got a 48,000 well, KV transmission line going through there. And I don't know, working around that would be the biggest obstacle. And I don't think Ameren would be too happy for us messing around with their right of way.
Like for the people, you had a little cul-de-sac at the end of the other one had a roundabout at the bottom.
Yeah, you can still do that if you want to, it's not a problem.
I just think about public traffic trying to get down to the park
Yeah.
as
And then
opposed to
why?
why people who are using that.
It's not very, yeah,
That road becomes an integral part of the plan.
yeah, I have no problem with it.
Is that overflow for the Y as well?
Pardon me?
At the bottom, they.
At the
own
bottom?
that. They,
Not
Yeah,
here.
why owns that?
This would be all parking for the line.
mhm.
Yeah.
Which they intend to be good Samaritans when they're not being used, and allow.
I mean,
parking.
I assume the Y has their own plan, they have their own architects and their own
They do.
plan for that portion, so honestly, it's probably gonna be up to them to figure out how it's gonna be the best way to flow.
Yeah, but I'm sure they'll want to comply or.
Well, I mean, they'll look at this, but I mean, they're gonna build that Y, and regardless if that thing is there or not.
John, it's.
Right? Is
the
that,
plan
am I
was-
correct?
Yeah, the plan was made with the use of the riverfront plan that was there before and there was a road there.
Yeah.
They built the Y around the concept of a road.
And
Okay.
this is pretty close to what the Wise plan is, and they were still modifying a few things.
Right.
I've seen an early version of it, put that on there, so.
Well, that was the version that had like the hook in it, right? It had it came down and it went like this.
Yes.
How long is it before the Y will have their, that figured out, coincide with this plan? Would we be better to wait for this to finish up when the Y is finished with their, land
I
site?
think they're in communications with staff.
Yeah, I've met them several times during this process, and we're pretty much on the same page.
Their architects and their civil engineers are in
Okay.
constant communication.
They did like a couple of my earlier concepts, so we're on the same page.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm just trying to make it as close as possible when you put a pin on it.
Where do Dave, where do the public utilities come in for this? The water, sewer and all that? They coming down Canal or they coming down Clinton? Where's the water and sewer and all that coming in for this development?
Which part?
The whole development?
Little part? I don't know if it needs it. The big sanitary sewer is almost right on top of the floodway line. So you see the blue floodway line that goes through the 21 or 24 inch gravity sewer that goes right through there. So anything that flow down here, down over there, all I gotta do is extend lines up. So there's sewer at the top of the hill, sewer at the bottom of the hill. There's water mains along Woodward. And there'll have to be water main run down to the YMCA. Water lines anyway, I don't know if there are mains, there's nothing else down there to serve the size of the line.
Well, do they leave like the hydrants here, Dave, you know, who wants to before?
Yeah, I think they left some at the bottom there. Yeah, there's water that goes east and west along the lower level parking lot.
That power's coming in from the west?
I don't know about that.
I think it's coming in from, by the KC's there. So,
Possibly. I mean, there's some stuff going on. Yeah.
what kind of
You're
underground?
talking about for the Y or for the whole?
For that development along Woodward, the power's gonna come in from the west, they're gonna put in some underground transformer there.
I have no idea. That's something we designed and worked out.
Yeah.
That happens later.
Shouldn't be a problem.
What,
But I mean, you're not gonna put in overhead power lines in there, you're gonna put underground.
I got one more question. Now, the existing, river walk that extends behind the Ottawa Boat Club and to the bridge, it's kind of, falling apart. Is your plan, addresses that, they get that re-shored up and, because it's collapsing pretty seriously. So, just want to make sure that we have plans for that to be done.
so also then, that where the parking is on the right side of the park, that had some type of development in the original. But I see you've moved some of that development up to the Jordan block and possibly between Columbus and LaSalle. What are those buildings as you are projecting?
So we talked last time about conceptually maybe a boutique hotel or something like that. I think that would be a great use. The other thing, I still think there's lots of market demand for in this area is additional residential. Those are probably the best two today. At some point in time, maybe office makes sense, but I don't think office makes sense in the current environment that we're in anyway. So I think it's probably residential or hotel type of uses with the idea of particularly the one up on the Jordan block certainly could have some retail activities.
On the ground floor, maybe both. What does everyone feel about our river town and our marinas and everything and them trying to tie to our downtown? Do we have enough boat docking if we're going to eliminate that harbor in this plan? How many docks are over on the Fox there?
So right now, it's pretty much just right along the shoreline. Right?
I think there's 8 or 10 there.
Not a little bit more, maybe double what's there or something like that. I don't know what we think we can ask.
Yeah, one time they had probably about 15 on that side when it was the yacht club.
Yeah, but there's, I think 8 or 10 transient docks there now.
Yeah.
But boat docking, there's a harbor sitting over there on the Illinois River that's not even being used.
What are you trying to?
That Oaks of White Harbor is sitting there. That's in.
What do you-
If-
what-
Bill Walsh owns all that over there. There's a harbor over there.
Yeah,
Doug.
there is, but it's not.
It's
We're
private.
talking about, no, we're talking
Right.
about the people getting here to our downtown and using our downtown.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You have 10 right there on that side of the Fox River right now. And he's talking about improving that.
It would be a good question for Tom Heisel and ask his opinion of his clientele and how they use our downtown.
I think that, I mean, I don't know what the scale was for that harbor, but I didn't know if it didn't really show a lot of boats being utilized with that little small area. So to me, I think it's a distraction just for the amount of money that you have to use to make it work. And can we make it up somewhere else? And then have an attractive price tag. That's my summary of the harbor versus not having a harbor, but.
Well, you turn the axis of the venue too. The axis was to the, looking back towards the courthouse on the previous plan. Now you turned it to the northwest. Was there a reason for that? Was that to capture the bridge behind it?
I think in offering plans to developers and their eyes see things the way they see it, they also are very much aware of this is in a tax credit area because of the depression. They're aware of those things. We've had people approach us about that, taking advantage of that. The Y is hoping to have an opportunity to use those fundings. There may be funding that they can find for rearrangement of those roads. I mean, maybe that becomes part of the discussion. If there's grant money there to be had, looking at all that, I think it's going to take a developer who has a vision, you know? Yeah.
Well, there's one, I serve on the Ottawa Port District, and that was one of the considerations. We're kind of waiting for this to be finalized so they can look, because there is funding mechanisms that we have for this type of, use. So, there's a lot of things going on with that, and it's changing every year. What we can do as a port district with grants and with special financing. It's just another arm for the developer to use.
I feel strongly that has to be commercial on the first floor of that tier of whatever that is there with condos up above.
Yeah. So your plan is what, 15 to 20?
That can be.
15.
10 to 14.
Right.
Not 14.
Yeah.
And then the other plan is 27 to 30, but that was with building a harbor and a bunch of other stuff.
Right.
So you're half.
Again, I think what I'm leaning towards is keeping both options in the back,
I
right?
agree.
To your point, developers like choices and like that, but by showing two plans, you're saying, look, we're flexible, we want to work with you
Yeah,
to do
I
something.
agree.
Right.
We want something that is pretty bold and.
Yeah.
So when
Okay.
we think of development in this community, and maybe I'm talking out of school a little bit, the old Nabisco plant in Marseilles has 3 New York developers
yeah,
talking to Marseilles about the redevelopment of the Nabisco plant. Who would have ever sat on a plan commission in anywhere and come up with a plan for that? But here come the visionaries who are going to redevelop that. And that's what I think we have at our riverfront,
Yeah.
is the potential to draw some amazing people to that. And offering options to them, I think, is a good thing.
I mean, nobody's got a open space opportunity
Not like
besides
ours.
life of yours
You're
adjacent
right.
to a downtown that I can.
When we were doing this a few years back, the people who were there had worked on the Chicago Park with Bean. And she would bring the bean and put it inside of this park, and she
Well,
said,
Millennium Park
That's
is inside this.
how big, that's how much space you have at your riverfront. There's no place like it. 100 years ago, people said, we're the only riverfront from here to Chicago that is not marred by industry. Never forget it. That's when the Island Inn Canal corridor placed itself here. And I went to a seminar for bed and breakfast. And The keynote speaker said Ottawa, Illinois is a place waiting to happen. And let me tell you why. This is a part of what's going to make us happen. And I think so strongly that we have to do our best to give it to the developers who say, this is what we think.
Yeah, and do it right.
Yeah.
Very well done, though.
The,
There we go.
Okay.
All right.
Let's go to the fun one.
Yeah,
Oh,
excellent.
you would fight this doors.
Oh.
All right, so we're gonna go west to east here, okay? Last time, we talked about a couple of specific things in this area here, right? You've got this whole kind of Marquette corridor, what do we do with it, right? You got some literal junkyards in the
Yeah.
area and different things there, but you've got challenges because of the railroad tracks. So we want to have a conversation about that. And then this corridor really doesn't really have much in the way of streetscape parkway enhancements, and you guys said, think about that and see what we can do in those areas. So, next slide. All right, so here we're looking at the red lines are railroads, which really does sandwich this area here. Green is the I-N Trail. This is coming along nicely. I walked that a little bit earlier where you're rewatering and that kind of stuff, and I know you ran into some complications, but it's gonna be really cool, so I love that. Right, and then you've got this corridor up here, and it is really tight up there, okay? You've got some redevelopment site opportunities, that's what I'm showing in this kind of, I don't know what color that is, but one's labeled W2, W3, W4. Those sites are essentially open land redevelopment opportunity sites. This area, this corridor here, you know, I've driven it, you've got some residential down here. You know, you've got some homes in this area, you've got the junkyard that's in there. It is a tough area in my mind because of the location between those railroad tracks.
Yeah.
I really can't see adding more residential in there. I
Yeah.
can't, you know, you've got, because of those tracks and the character of the area, I think it remains a great area for, the best use I can think of are like contractors, right? A plumbing contractor or some other kind of contractor that would have an office and a shop and maybe need a little bit of a yard area or something like that. Doesn't have to have high visibility on a major street, but does need good accessibility to get in and out. So that's really what I'm thinking makes the most sense in that area. It doesn't really take advantage of the I&M, but between the tracks and everything else, I don't see it as a great spot for us now. So I think you guys.
Tracks are abandoned, aren't they?
No, they're both
I think
active.
so.
The one going behind Burns Machine is.
Behind Burns is, but yeah, it
That,
goes
this
west.
stretch is.
Oh, that track. I'm sorry. I know, I'm looking at the other track.
Right.
The is it W1?
Then you want to hear?
Yeah, that's the land west of Simcoe.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
I've always thought, that's farmland right now.
Yeah,
I've always thought that would be, I mean, take away the industrial side, because, I mean, we got an industrial park, we're gonna push it over that way.
Yeah.
But I've always thought that would be a great entrance from the west to make that a multi-use piece of land. It could be mixed housing, it could be retail, it could be a mix of things that would fall in that area. I just don't see that, wanting that to be industrial.
Okay.
Just for the fact that we want to push industrial out towards the industrial park. That's my opinion. And I don't know what the life cycle is with Simcoe. It could be there for 1,000,000 years. I don't know. It may be somebody will take it, buy it and knock it down or whatever. But that piece of land right there, that free piece of, that empty piece of land, I think we need to really make that as most attractive it can be.
Okay.
Really, I'm telling you, when we come from the west to the east,
Up there, but there's no water or sewer.
it's just neat. We have so much potential coming in from the west side of town.
Where is water and sewer? How close is it?
it's down at the corner of Norris Drive and Boyce, isn't it, Dave?
Small
water's-
Small water and sewer.
Yeah.
Nothing heavy industrial.
So maybe it would be better.
No, Janko was looking at doing something.
Yeah,
residential.
and now I
Yeah.
think it's for sale. Isn't it for sale?
I think it's a great piece of land.
I think he has a sign out there. And then there's a railroad track that runs
Well,
right
there is
west end.
a spur behind it on the north side of it.
Yeah.
That's probably abandoned by now, because that's used to be.
No,
No, they-
Stuff
He's
that-
still,
Oh, you mentioned for Simcoe's using it?
Simcoe, I
Oh, okay.
think, shuffles stuff in
Oh, okay.
there, doesn't he? Doesn't Scott still run stuff back in there every once in a
There
while?
was some repairs on the
rail car.
Okay.
Anyway, it's not a main line, so it wouldn't be that.
Right.
Spur.
I'm all for trying to make it, trying to beautify the west end of our town, because there is a lot of potential. It's just, it's just blighted right now.
Well, yeah, and we had some open space on Marquette Street that we did clean up. Remember, we took some of that junk out.
Those are in a brownfield, aren't they, Dave?
Yeah, they were, Marquette Street is the same as the riverfront.
Yeah, I think so.
W2 and W3 are both brownfield, I think.
Yeah, I would not be surprised about.
And didn't we have a grant for those or no?
We've done soil testing, it wouldn't be too hard to get in front of ours. Probably take another 50 to 60,000 bucks of testing.
And then the one up on North Drive. No, that one?
Yeah.
I don't know what you put there. I mean,
It's up to Drive the River Road. Isn't that the railroad's repair shop?
yep,
Well, down here it is, right?
Yeah.
It's vacant now. I think that's just a small retail, it's an office space, it's not, it's commercial.
Yeah,
it's
see.
residential.
Pizza place.
and then there's a lot across from Sam's.
Yeah. Just-
Donut shop.
The old one.
Exactly.
There's the old donut shop.
I remember that.
I didn't know what to do.
So that's that it. So, I'm here, I'll change W1 to kind of mixed residential, that makes sense.
I don't see residential going there. I don't like to argue with you. I don't.
It's mixed use. I call it mixed. I call it mixed use. It doesn't have to be all residential. It can be a mixed use.
Light industrial, something like that.
Well, I think mixed use is a broad way of saying it.
Okay, I'll agree with
Okay,
that.
well.
It could be a big box.
It could be.
Whatever somebody has the money for.
Yeah, but I mean, it's good though. Now, on the North Drive, those dotted lines, are you gonna expand on?
Yeah, let's talk about that, go to the next slide.
There we go.
All right, so this is what that corridor looks like right now, right? It's very, very tight. You don't have a lot of right of way to do much with. You've only got a sidewalk on the north side of the street. And even then, it's kind of a carriage walk right along the pavement, right? So it's pretty tight. Some of the buildings in the corridor are fairly well maintained. The lighting is older, wooden poles essentially. And so it's not a great one, but we've got tight space. What do we do with it, right? Okay, one thing we could do obviously is not terribly complicated, upgrade streetlights, which actually with decorative poles and fixtures really can enhance the look of the corridor. That's doable. We can work with the property owners on, maybe some kind of a program to do facade enhancements and landscaping on their property. It would be private, but because we don't own any land in here, we gotta do something creative to do something in here. The carriage walk is not in good shape and really needs to be repaired along that side. The only other thing you could consider, and Doug warned me this may not apply, but I'm gonna throw it out anyway, and we'll see what happens, right? The only other thing that I've seen in situations like this is some communities have gone, rather than a 4-lane cross section, to a 3-lane cross section. The center lane is essentially a continuous turn, okay? That gets the cars turning out of the main flow of traffic, helps the flow here, and if we're able to do that, we can pull in those curbs a little bit and get some space to do some landscaping and some sidewalks and that kind of stuff on both sides of the street. Honestly, those are really the only ideas I've got for this piece, given how tight the right of way is, and there's really not room. The structures are close enough up the right of way that we really can't expand the right of way in that area because.
How likely is IDOT to approve that?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
3-lane, they've actually done in some cases. We will take discussion, negotiation and time to pull that off, but I've seen them do that in some situations.
Because this is their class, whatever, truck route through town. This is the main truck route through town.
It's a state highway.
Yeah, it would take more study to look at, but it's something you even consider. We can have a conversation with them. I'll be happy to call them and just talk to them if that's something he wants to get into.
I'm free to have a talk with IDOT, but they'd probably say no way.
They might, but we don't know if we don't let them do it.
The only thing I would say would be that the difficult for them to make a decision, one of the major factors is when Route 80 gets closed down, Route 6 is the alternate route.
Yeah.
And with that amount of traffic, they probably would say, I mean, I would, and I would love to have it drawn up, but how many times in a year did Route 6 become the alternate route? Probably a dozen times, if not more, because there's so many accidents on 80.
Well, you have so many industrial users using it. I mean, Silica alone,
Yeah.
running sand trucks out of their plant. And the garbage truck's going to the dump.
Yeah, I mean, as I understand it, the 3-lane can cover, carry just about the same capacity as this.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily capacity.
I'm all for you having a conversation with them.
Please, yeah, I go for it. Anything to make it look attractive. And then also, what type of lighting would you propose? Lower pole, historic lighting, or would you go with
Not
the?
necessarily lower, I would keep mainly the height, well, what I would do probably is have the taller street lights like you got right now, but more decorative pole and a more decorative fixture on it.
Yeah.
And then if we're able to pull this in and create a pedestrian environment there, you can branch off of that taller pole with some smaller pedestrian pieces too.
Yeah. Okay.
Or you can do banners or whatever else you chose to do.
I got rebuilt 6 and 71, what, 2 years ago? Dave?
All resurfacing they did?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a couple years.
And they didn't do west though, did they? They just resurfaced, right? They didn't rebuild the intersections and the crosswalks.
Resurfaced.
So you'd have to see,
Well, they did make handicap accessibility corners in some locations that they had,
not all of them though.
but no.
I want to see what their plan is for rebuilding this, if it's on one of their schedules. And that's when we need to talk to them about, hey, maybe going down to
Right. I mean,
that
this-
3-lane.
Like I said, this is not, if we went 3-lane, this is, at least 10 years, probably more than that out, but,
It's visionary.
Yeah,
I like it. That's a good,
we'll have a conversation, right? I can see if there is a.
It's not-
Well, it helps slow them down, because they're going 50 along there now. It helps slow them down if you make it a 3-lane.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so, the middle section here, we talked about, this is kind of the front door of the community for the view. 123 certainly is important there. We've got some circulation issues there at the area where CVS is and McDonald's is and those kind of things. So is there anything we can do with those things? We wanted to highlight the fact that you're rewatering the canal, and that's kind of a really nice amenity down there. So those are some of the things we talked about last time. I'm going to show you some specific pictures in a minute, but landscape enhancements along this section for sure. We want to think about, although again, in some of these areas it's really tight, so there's limited things that we can do, but we'll talk about some options there. This actually has been discussed a little bit already, but I think the idea, you got a signalized intersection here at the north side of the school. I think continuing that over to Paul and then potentially continuing up to Jones really does make sense. I did see a preliminary sketch for the hospital's property that actually integrated that idea. I think that is a good opportunity to do something like that, clean up that circulation and access. Right now, you've got that kind of funky little angled road that kind of comes in there in that area. That would certainly clean that stuff up on the north area here. And then the other things that I'm thinking about here, I really always like the idea when you've got a major kind of regional trail system like this, you want to feed people into it wherever you can. And there's limited opportunities to do that, but I'm thinking potentially along, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, Gasson or?
Guy.
Thank you. Guyan seems to be the street that's got the best connectivity to tie this neighborhood to the north of 6 down to the trail in this area. So throw out the idea of creating some bike lanes or maybe even horticulture. You have in town, so you probably know what a Cheryl is. It's the signs on the street, right? It's shared.
It's on Main Street.
Right. So you got some around here. So anyway, keeping people down to that, I think makes sense. And then doing some landscape enhancements along 6, and we chatted a little bit about that earlier prior to the meeting. I'll show you some slides of that in a second. In terms of redevelopment sites, we don't have a lot in this area. We do have a site that's owned by the hospital, C1 here. And that certainly makes sense if they decide to proceed with that. I'm not opposed to that at all. We've got this site C2 that's right at the tracks and really a residential neighborhood right there. To me, that is probably still a residential play because you've got residential all around it here. You've got residential here. It's probably maybe not single family homes, maybe it's townhomes or
The
something.
last plan was the townhome development.
That would seem reasonable in that location to me. So those things, those are some of the things we got on this one here, next slide. So here's some thoughts and ideas, right? You've got 10 motors there. Actually, one car there before, big guys, right? But it's all pavement. This is all asphalt in here. That's all asphalt stripped in there. We've got these little bollards right here and, banner signs here. It's not a great attractive entrance coming into town. Nothing, but the use I'm sure is gonna stay there for a long time. It's been there a long time, right? So I'm not proposing to change the use at all, but what can we do to enhance that? We don't have a lot of room to do too much, okay? So I'm throwing out the idea of some type of a continuous, we called it a crash barrier, I'll just call it a whole fence. It's fairly open here. And the guy's gonna wanna keep visibility into his dealership, so I can't do a whole lot that's gonna be tall and really screen it per se, because I wanted to have a healthy, viable business, right? So, the idea of something like this though, provides kind of protection with its cars, it separates his use from the public space, and it just provides something that's more attractive along that edge. And then when you got thin strips like this, I understand why they paved it, because it simplifies their maintenance, right? But it doesn't provide much in terms of attractiveness. It's a really tough environment to grow a lot of plants. However, daylilies are tougher than nails.
Yeah,
And
they
they
grow
only
anywhere.
work in a situation like this, and really kind of enhance the character of the look of a stretch like this, so.
I have a question for you.
Yep.
We have, and for downtown, we have a facade improvement program for downtown business owners to improve their downtown businesses. Would this be something that we could look into for encouraging owners that are along this corridor, having some kind of proposal for up there to maybe split the cost with you or give you a whatever towards doing some of these suggested improvements?
Yep, absolutely.
Could that be incorporated into your proposal?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm ready. No, we'll do that.
Good idea.
Because that's the only way you're gonna get them to do it.
Absolutely.
If you dangle $5,000 in front of them and say, hey, if you want to put this in,
Uh-huh.
we'll give you $5,000 towards the
Yeah,
cost.
no, you're right.
We'll split it with you.
There's no incentive otherwise. I agree. Yeah, we've got to do something to partner with it. And that's the point, right? That we love them as a business and community. I'm trying to keep like if I, it doesn't do anything. All right, thanks. Okay, on the north of that, right? This is kind of coming, I'm looking north on 23 here,
Mhm.
okay?
Before you get to Fremont.
Yeah, exactly. What do you do in this area? Again, I'm going back to my daily idea, just because you got these tiny narrow parkways, the right of way in this area is pretty constrained as well. In this area, I'm not gonna propose going to a 3-lane section, because I think you do have the volume of traffic and whatnot that you really do need, that in this area. So there's not a lot that we can do, but what I'm suggesting here is, again, streetlights, we could absolutely upgrade those and enhance the look and appearance of those streetlights that are in this area. The idea of working with property owners to enhance their building facades, again, you talked about the facade program you got downtown, maybe it extends to this area somehow. We gotta find a financing mechanism to make that work, but, again, they're not gonna do it necessarily unless we partner with them, but I think anything that fronts on a major street like this, we want to look appealing and attractive, and some of the buildings are, I'm not saying they're all bad, but there are some that could certainly use a facelift, and improve that. There really isn't space to do street trees or any of that in this particular stretch because of the narrowness of the right of way. So again, that's why I'm saying something simple like mass data link plantings or some other type of, it's relatively low maintenance and can handle the salt and other junk that you're gonna get in a roadway setting like this. Really could create a unique entrance to the community of the downtown area that you don't see anywhere really.
Well, and have you been in North Carolina?
I have,
Have you been in the Asheville area of North Carolina?
yes.
On their off ramps of 40 and 26,
Yes, yes.
they just do mass planning
Yes.
of Stella Doro dildos. They bloom them for probably 2 months.
Yeah.
And it's just a solid mass color as you're going down the highway at 50 miles an hour.
That's the kind of concept that I'm thinking about. Yeah, so this is a little slightly more linear than their larger plans, but yes, absolutely, the idea of that is.
Could it be possible to overlay some of that lighting that you're talking about?
Oh, yeah.
In one of your illustrations?
Yeah.
And I really honestly, I think coming down the hill and going south, I like the lower lights, the more decorative lights. It makes, because it's a neighborhood still, it's a,
It is,
it's, you know, it kind of, you gotta blend.
Yep.
And I think those lights shine down and actually look really nice in the evenings. I like what they did with Columbus Street a couple years ago. It just makes it look so attractive and warm. And I think that will help a lot, at least during the nighttime, to keep it attractive. But also, it'll look nice uniformed all the way up and down.
Yeah.
So that was just a thought.
No, good thought, good thought. All right, next slide. Again, same area, except on this side, the west side of the street.
You got more of
You got more parkway, so we could do some perennial beds and this kind of stuff. And this actually, because it's on that side of the sidewalk, is under city control, although they're using it for parking. So they're not there,
There's a car out there every once in a while.
Nonetheless, we could plant some plant beds out here, and I think that could look quite attractive, so there is room to do things. Again, though, he owns both sides of the street here, he could do a consistent little low fence on both sides between the sidewalk and his vehicles. In this case, he has no security, he's got them right up to the thing, right, so.
Ken, that's Duffy.
No, that's 10.
Up front here's Ken.
This is
Something,
10.
yeah.
Like, Duffy's on the other side of
That's
the driveway.
right. I apologize, you're right.
Yeah.
You can see the
I
demarcation.
can now, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, next slide. All right, this is looking, going,
That's the best.
east on Norris, right? There aren't a couple trees out here anywhere, but there is enough room and right of way to do it. I know, that's not gonna do it for you. right?
I've argued with them already, but
This is a case where I think that they would allow it, but they're gonna make you pay for it and get those things established.
well, they want an engineering design. I mean, they want everything.
Absolutely, absolutely, but it's possible. Yeah, sometimes it's not even possible. It is possible here. Again, the street lights like we were talking about really can enhance the appearance of this area. Banners, we help you guys develop a wayfinding signage program that, I don't know when it's gonna be implemented, but certainly wayfinding to help navigate and find parks and churches and schools.
We actually have that, but they're currently removed. I think they're getting redone, aren't they?
They're off for bid right now, aren't they?
Oh, you guys are doing it. Okay, nice.
Well, we're not building them, but we decided.
Design, yeah, nice. Yeah, they need to be updated.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no story with IDOT on trees along this road.
Yeah.
In front of Walgreens
Question,
with Kathy.
Oh, yeah.
We forgot about that one, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
I did.
It's it.
what would IDOT, now IDOT, do they own those poles or does city of
Or
Ottawa?
does Ameren own them?
Ameren, is Ameren own them?
Probably.
Okay, what, like some of the communities have the steel poles and underground, ducking. And what makes it that they get that determined or versus a wood pole? Is it obviously money, but is there city, that city that has the attractive poles, uniform poles, are they paying for a portion of that?
Typically, the city's paying for the difference between this cheap, ugly version
Yeah.
and the nice, attractive version.
Okay, because if you go Route 6 over through Spring Valley, about 10 years ago, they redid the entrance to Spring Valley going west from St. Bede. And they put all nice steel light poles all the way down Route 6. And that would make me think, why did they determine that versus our town?
Yeah. I
They
mean,
have different electrical suppliers.
Mhm.
Our area, we're in Ameren, go a little bit north or a little bit south in Cornwall.
Okay, that could be actually comment out there too.
Power south in ComEd, go to food, they've got their own, it's like, each utility has a different system. Ameren is blatantly told us they want to get out of the streetlight business. They'll put in basically full, but other than that, they pretty much want the city to own the thing.
Okay, that answers my question.
So if we wanted decorative poles, we'd have to put up a pole.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's,
And that's what we've done
And
now.
I think, didn't we save money with Ameren when we put in the poles downtown? When we put ours in, because we were paying,
Probably went down.
no, but weren't we paying for their concrete pole downtown or something? When we took them down? I thought I remember something that we saved money by putting in our own
There was
poles.
some savings, so you spend $1 million, we save so much money. It's not, it's expensive building.
Somebody's gonna do.
Okay, now we'll look at the intersection of Paul and Norris, okay? The issues here are, one, traffic coming in and out of McDonald's, right? We have to continue to maintain this left turn down to Paul so you can get into McDonald's, otherwise there'd be no way to get into McDonald's. So that's absolutely critical. What is happening or what you see on these two red lines, a little bit, right? I sat out here, I got my ear bent by a neighbor in this particular.
Oh, and we know.
Oh,
All
yeah.
right.
To some extent, right? I mean, I was sat out there in this parking lot and observed for a little while. And what I saw from just my observation, and this isn't a scientific engineering thing, okay? But roughly 80% of the people did the right thing, turned right and went down this way, and they might loop back and come back through the alley or something, or they might just keep going east if they wanted to. But you did certainly have people making, and this isn't legal, but they do it, making a turn this way and then going north on Ball or making a U-turn and doing that, right? So those are some of the movements that are challenging in there and we want to explore that. And talking to Doug and understanding the area, I think IDOT has looked at some of this stuff and basically concluded that it wasn't cost effective to do anything. But just for sake of argument, I did think about what you, and the other thing you obviously noticed is these air photos are really old. I couldn't get a current air photo to show CVS the way it's currently configured or the Domino's that sits in there now. I just don't have a current air photo. And actually, this is probably a different drive configuration for McDonald's now too. I don't have a map of that stuff. So anyway, the only two things that I can think of that might help a little bit is, right now it's right in, right out here anyway. You could put one of these little pork chops to force it a little bit more. And you could potentially extend this, the median is right here, right now. Maybe you extend it a little bit farther. You still have to keep that because you gotta get people into McDonald's.
Right.
There's no way I can cut off their traffic, and not be able to let people get into that McDonald's. Right, so those are the only two things I can think of. Is that cost effective?
That makes sense.
Well, the entrance to McDonald's is off Norris Drive.
Right, you're coming in this way, right, but you're going out here.
You can't get in it.
No, but going in.
Yeah, but when you come down Paul, you can turn into it.
You're coming westbound on Norris, coming this way and then come in, right?
Yeah, or Burger King, you gotta have an entry for Burger
Have
King.
them all the way back on 120 feet.
Right, you have to go this way and come back around, yeah. But at least this way you can't get into McDonald's, the way, I really don't want to close that off.
The U-turn situation is still bad, but now they're going down to Post Street and they're doing the U-turn at
Yes,
Post
they
now.
are.
So they're still doing the U-turn, but they're just not doing it immediately as they come out of the drive-through. So
It's in a good place, it's not as congested.
it's a block further east, yeah.
Yeah.
But the problem with CVS, that's a different problem, because there's really only one way to get into CVS coming from the south, is to go all the way up Columbus and then turn right into their parking lot. But people turn right at Norris Drive, and then they do the illegal left turn to go into CVS.
Right.
So CVS is, I don't know what you do with them. I mean, I guess that little triangle thing would stop that, would force them to go on Columbus North.
Yeah.
Why would they just stay on Columbus Street and then turn in?
Yeah.
They do, but I mean, that's the way to go in,
Yeah.
but they turn at Norris Drive and go
Yeah.
and take that left turn, John.
Yeah, that's.
So,
Because there is an entry into CVS on.
right there.
Mhm.
It looks like a main entry too.
But I do like the right in, right out. That's the way that does work, as long as it's large enough.
Yeah.
And I know people like don't want to, snow plows and all that, they hate those things, but it does work.
There's not a lot of options here. But we have one.
That's good. I didn't think about the extended Islander.
All right, so Norris Drive going to the east, right? We talked about science throughout the corridor. We talked about working with IDOT, and we talked about the fact that you did have a tree program out here at one time, and most of those trees, about all of those trees have gone.
99% of them are
Right
gone.
this time, and we do want to get some traffic action out to Dayton Love at some point in time. So next slide. The other big issue that we didn't talk a lot about this time, which you guys probably already know, right? We got to be cognizant of the floodplains and floodways and that kind of thing in this area because they are pretty substantial and significant. I was looking at some redevelopment opportunities along the river here, and when I looked at the map closer, it's almost all floodplain, so you really can't do much in that area. So, next slide. All right, so, here's that existing, Stoker or something like that, kind of campground / boat launch area.
The illegal campground.
The illegal campground.
Yeah, it's all in floodplain, floodway, so you can't do much with it, so I don't know. But you got this big site E1 here, that I'm showing for retail office. It could be expansion of the medical campus that you've got there. I understand that there's some, I don't know if it's contamination, but there used to be a factory or something.
There's some brownfield in there.
Yeah, so there may be some issues with that, but, I think that is kind of a mixed use opportunity. It actually might be, if you clean it up enough, an opportunity for either some senior housing or some multifamily housing. Proximity to the river there, that might be interesting.
The hospital owns all that, don't they, Dave?
They do, yeah.
Yeah, if hospital wants to develop it, I'm all for that, no problem. All right.
Well, I mean, at one time they were gonna put their cardiac rehab thing over there on that side, but then it just kind of went, they never did it. They never did it.
Well, they have rehab, they don't have life.
They're going to.
So I think there's multiple opportunities on that site. You got a smaller couple sites,
That's fine.
E2 and E3 in here, and really E4.
E2 and E1. There's a final document to take that up.
All right.
I was at the lab there.
Yeah, they put their new dental lab in there.
Yeah.
All right. All right, what else we got going on here? So, I like the idea, you got to get the INM Canal Trail, we want to get a trail out to Dayton Bluff, the potential residential areas out here. I'd like to tie those together, so I think it needs to come obviously along the street here, with some enhanced crossing in this particular area here. But I think that is important here. We do have another development opportunity site out here, E5, which again, I think, I'm just labeling mixed use, but probably not residential, so it could be industrial, it could be commercial, retail, that kind of thing. I don't think that corner is a residential corner.
No, that's commercial highway.
So that's really, and the other thing that I think is an idea, and I don't know if you tried this, but this whole corridor, particularly when you get into here, is really wide. There's hardly a tree out there, but there is room to do that. This could be a 1.5 mile green gateway into the community. It really could.
It needs to be.
It was slated to be a green gateway under the old plan.
I still think it makes a lot of sense. Honestly, I do. You've got the land and the space to do it. And it really could be something special. It's not anything special right
I
now.
like that.
What-
Did you?
Because the 71 access is going to continue to be more traffic, and I think this is to have an entry into town that's enhanced like that. I think it's good.
Where are we at in the EPA cleanup, the radium cleanup? Is it done or they still have more work to do?
They've done more than half of the property that New State Grand Rapids occupies. Because there was some cleanup on the parking spots, on the gravel area. There's still some more to do there. Then there's a whole bunch behind it, behind the fence.
That they haven't even touched yet?
They sampled it this year, there's more exploratory testing, but there's a lot.
Because that was the old city dump.
Yeah.
Well, at one time, this was 15 years ago, it was gonna cost $62 million to clean that up. 15 million, or 15 years ago.
Could have highlights.
So, and that was just to cap it.
Out of all the sites, it's the last one to finish.
Yeah.
Would there be, real quickly, just before you go to the next one, would there be a chance that you could put some illustrations, some drawings of what kind of landscaping, a buffer on each side of the curb, each side of the road? Because really, if we can put screening, landscape screening enough to bury out let's go with the tire company there, it's Pomps. I mean, they could make that building so much more attractive with taking the trailer away, taking those old tires that are laying all over the place. And I'm just thinking, okay, if they're not gonna do that, let's put screening in there not so nice screening, like landscaping in there. You know, if it's bermed or whatever it is.
Well, the other thing I need you to note is the canal going east. We've always talked about the canal in the center of town and to the west. This stretch of the canal is probably the most ignored part of the canal between here and Morris. Because it's a freaking swamp once you get past the old Chicago Road. I mean, if we can talk to IDNR about, hey, do you guys have some kind of maintenance program here planned or whatever? It does connect. No, but it does connect to Heritage Harbor, which we're sinking a lot of time and effort into developing Heritage Harbor, and it's the connection to town.
The place to start with any kind of idea like that is to have it in this plan document, so you can point to IDA or IDNR later on, if they ever have any money to do anything, which doesn't mean yet, but if they did, you can point to the fact that we highlighted that in their plan as an objective.
Well, the city spent a lot of money between the curve on Green Street and Old Chicago Road with Larry Fleming cleaning that part up. And it's kind of like, hey, we're willing to commit our part. IDNR, you do your part to clean up your part from Chicago Road going east.
And they'll give
Chicago
you,
Road.
they'll give you.
Staff, we don't have enough money.
Well,
That's right.
guess what? They're gonna have a lot of money pretty quick. You know, they're getting all this money from the Fed and they're looking for places to put it. They're gonna be ripping up every road around here. So IDNR is gonna be getting money.
All right, 80 and 71, kind of your eastern gateway into the community. Certainly you've got some commercial uses in this area, and certainly commercial use makes sense at the heart of the interchange there. You know, maybe a hotel someday, certainly highway oriented things like you got now, and regional restaurants and those kind of things certainly make sense. I certainly think you've got some, the purple is industrial opportunities, and you certainly have got some in that area. We could even show more potentially if we wanted to, not opposed to thinking about that. A couple other things I want to highlight here. You've got some odd road configuration.
Yeah.
Yep.
Roads coming in at weird triangles in a couple of spots.
Mhm.
We really need to long-term think about straightening those things out, either coming them in at 90-degree angles, or in a case like this, thinking about making a future connection out there in that area. So I think that's important to consider. Certainly the Dayton Bluffs, I like that. It's really beautiful back in there. I think having some residential that backs up to that would make a lot of sense. This is the existing restaurant, banquet facility and whatnot. That's the reason that red piece is there. And that location, I think the kids love some commercial in this corner here. I'm showing agricultural down here honestly, just because I don't, you know, in a 15, 20-year time frame, I don't know if there's going to be demand for it. I mean, certainly you could have more industrial down here potentially long term, but I think it's going to want to be up by the interstate first. So that's why I'm showing that in here. This is really not a road. This is really just the line text got moved up here. It's supposed to be a buffer between the commercial and the residential in that area here. So the other thing I wanted to highlight here is I really think, and I think that you're thinking about it and you're getting those signage and stuff too, but you know, this is kind of the first front door of the community, right? Maybe we do something interesting at this interchange, whether it's a future bridge enhancement along there, where we do something on the railings and that kind of thing. Or maybe it's a really nice new entry site to the community or something. But I think we need to do something to welcome people to Ottawa right here. And I like the idea of doing it here because you may still want 23 to be your main entrance into town. But if you do something here, it's almost like a teaser, right? It's like, you know, next exit Ottawa, oh, this one, okay, next exit, you really got us, right? So
kind of like what Burr Ridge did up in 55.
Yeah.
probably not as expensive, but yeah, something along the lines of that, you know?
We
Go ahead.
try to pull Starbucks traffic from a tourism standpoint. We try to pull it to this location.
That's the first, coming from Chicago, that'd be the first.
Yeah.
Exit.
And it's, you follow 71 all the way to the.
Right.
So.
That's why I say welcome to Side Rock Country, Ottawa, Illinois.
What's the sewer running up there, Mr. Mayor?
It's already there.
No, water.
Or water?
It should be this year.
this year?
That's when you probably see the opportunities.
Go up there.
I mean, you got all the for sale signs up there.
And that's gonna loop back through Dayton over to 23 then, down Dayton Road?
I don't believe so.
I never heard of that.
I thought it was gonna loop west,
What's that?
the water.
That's like, it's getting directionally bored underneath the river, and I think on the south side of it. Or no, it's north side. Is it south?
You're going through the conservation.
So what does our commitment to Route 6's industrial park, how does that feel when we're, if we have 80 industrial identification, is that going to be a detriment to trying to develop the Route 6 industrial park?
Route 6 is on rail,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll never get rail up here. So they might charge.
So I see what you're saying.
Yeah, we're asking Route 6, it is probably more real industrial kind of stuff
Yeah.
that take advantage of.
Heavy industrial.
Your industrial.
This more
there.
likely is what you. see
Warehousing.
Elsewhere.
Distribution center.
Yeah,
Maybe
exactly.
a big box.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now, will there be a water tower, they required for the water supply up there, or are you guys gonna be able to have enough pressure to supply up there?
Probably enough pressure to start with,
Okay.
but eventually that'll be something.
Yeah, okay.
Can I ask you a couple of questions?
Absolutely.
So when you look at an interchange like this, if someone was to pull in another whopping huge truck stop, which will be the first to make, is there one quadrant that would have less traffic impact than another? Some of them snarl it, some truck stops just snarl the traffic, some aren't so bad. It all has to do with, are they mostly turning right, mostly turning left? 3 trucks back up, waiting to turn, the cars can't get, you know how it goes.
Yeah.
I like to think about if it's a truck stop, where should it go to have these traffic records?
I don't have an answer for you right off the top, but let me think about that a little bit.
That's an interesting, yeah.
You know, it's a good question.
Dave, your answer is probably that southwest quadrant, because it'd be the traffic coming from the west.
We don't want it there.
Well,
Well, I'm just saying.
see, I was opposite. I was thinking northwest.
Yeah, keep it north of 80.
I was thinking that too.
Northwest.
North of
All
the.
the large truck stops, look at that in Utica. Well, actually, that's kind of more south or north.
No.
Let's see, that would be,
So guys, if you remember.
yeah, that would be northeast, but northwest. I would think, that seems like that's where they're all at, the Loves. and-
Morris has
Oh,
got
I agree.
2 north of 80,
Yeah.
and
There's northeast.
they're going
Yeah.
to be building one south.
Brisbane.
They're building on Brisbane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mike, before the crash of 08, there was a developer, who looked at where the Dayton Bluffs hadn't been established yet. There was a substantial developer who, had plans before us for an entire residential development in that corridor in front of Dayton Bluffs and including Dayton Bluffs. It was massive. I mean, they could have held a school in it.
Yeah, then he was gonna put
So much.
a small.
It was 3,500 lot.
And so while that will never happen again, probably in our projected comprehensive plan here, I think we need to protect that area because of the bluffs, because of the natural beauty of that. I think we could attract something there that would have significance that is not related to trucking.
Yeah,
and truck
so that's
traffic.
not detrimental.
Well,
High quality residential, are you talking about?
Well, I don't know if they'll come back, but that is premier land out there.
It really is, yeah, I was surprised.
I
that
was
was
involved in that, Debbie. I'm
Yeah.
very familiar with that whole project. In fact, Dale and I flew out to Arizona to meet those people.
Really?
And it just died.
Well, the guy died. It was
Well,
doing.
not when we
We
were.
got a wheelchair?
Well, he may have seen something before the rest of us did that, you know, what was changing.
Yeah, but the pressure here now, once the city gets the sewer and water out to this intersection, the pressure is gonna be where all that purple and hash marked and whatever is for residential development to come in here. There's gonna be some developers gonna come down here and say, hey, we wanna put a 200 unit subdivision in here because we can get access to sewer and water.
Well, all right, so here's what's wrong.
Huh?
My thoughts are, the areas up to along 80, I really think you want to keep for industrial stuff. Okay, I think
Maybe distribution centers.
Yeah, I think as well. And I-
Lots of that. Even the commercial, the bottom right-hand quadrant, the commercial just moves back. Then you get, if you go up to the interstate,
yeah,
that last 20 acres could have the same light industrial.
Yeah,
You
right.
can see a row of distribution centers right there.
yep,
Mhm.
yep. So I think there's demand for that. Would there be more demand for residential? Absolutely in this hatched area. I think this could potentially be more industrial down here, or it could be residential, and I'm not opposed to either one.
It's good to keep it rolling, keep your options open.
I'd rather just keep it ag for now and focus the residential when we think it makes the most sense. And then deal with that ag area
And-
after that builds up.
And protect that corridor of 80 and 71 on the south,
Yeah.
southwest
Especially in
section.
the conservation area.
Yeah, protect that with
I'd have to step.
type
in
of
and sketch it
commercial
myself.
is allowed
That
there.
might be very long.
Kind of a low grade commercial.
Mhm. Hotel would be okay.
Very nice. That's all I got for you.
Very good, very good.
Yeah, very nice.
Thank you.
We're making progress. So my game plan is to continue to work on this. I will go ahead and post this presentation to the website so people can see it
Thank you.
if they want to. Our game plan then is to roll all these comments into an updated overall draft of your comp plan. My goal is to have that generally done by the end of June, so that we could have this before you with draft form in July.
Awesome.
Very nice.
Were you ever planning on a public
Yeah.
session or?
Yes, once we get next draft, whenever you're comfortable with it, we'll have a public open house and let people come in and take a look at it,
That'd be good.
give feedback.
Yeah.
We need to do that.
Now that we can maybe get away with it.
Absolutely.
We would have gone now. But,
It's nice to be standing here without the mask.
yeah, right.
What
We're
would
not on Zoom.
What would your timeframe for that be?
I would think you guys want to take a look at it first, right? So
Yes.
you'll look at this at your July meeting, so we could do that in August.
That'd be fair.
Okay. Well, very well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Good luck with IDA and IDNR.
Doug, are we?
I didn't say that's all I did, but I know what their answers would be.
We are, I'm sorry.
Well,
Motion to adjourn.
no, not yet.
Corner. Did you move to the motion? Okay, second and second nonsense.
I didn't write it.
We're going to bed.
Is there any potential?
Wait, don't go.
We're not done yet. I'm gonna wait for Doug.
Yeah, Doug is, he's, I'm trying to get next meeting since you're not gonna be here. I'm trying to get Scoot.
The B and B situation in town, the one closed, and we got one that's somewhere in some phase of construction. Are they ever coming in for a permit?
They're gonna need to.
Has anybody contacted them yet, or no?
No, I'll talk to Matt. And,
You mean that what just sold? What are you talking about, Prospect, East Prospect?
I'm talking about
Corporal.
Coral.
Oh,
They sunk all the money into rehabbing the building. They've never come in for a hearing.
yeah, they're still working on this. But
Well, I don't think they ever did with the one they had on East Main Street, did they? They had a B and B there in the house that I sold them.
Well, there's a lot of Airbnb stuff going on in town. That's,
And that's Texas too.
And now it's in the market again.
I don't know how the city
Right.
wrangles that in. But, you know, they spent probably $500,000 or more on that for the homes.
Oh, yeah.
Huh? No,
No.
absolutely not.
You took her in her,
They're not doing a B and B.
What are they doing?
They're allowed to only have 5 units, is it? That's the limit. If they do any more and cross the line, they gotta be.
Well, maybe it's a different, like a BRD or.
No, they're not doing a bed and breakfast. They're not doing a bed and breakfast. They're sticking to 5 units and less.
So that might be an Airbnb.
So, because that doesn't require it.
Yeah.
And if everyone who's planning to have more rooms, they gotta come in front of them.
We've been so restrictive on B and Bs. And there are so many vacation rentals by owner.
Oh, yeah.
You're preaching, yeah.
My neighborhood has
Oh, yeah.
There's,
no restrictions.
there's all kinds of Airbnbs in town.
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, does she do it?
Oh, my God.
But it'd be nice to encourage B&Bs.
So then there's, they just have to meet multifamily.
Yeah, they don't go over the restriction. I didn't realize that's what they're doing, but they don't go over that threshold.
How do they think through on that?
You mean a weekend?
As far as, it's zoned like apartment or something.
No.
And
Well,
I know it-
Well,
and they kill people.
Was-
These
I
things.
don't think it's, no,
I know, and good people who.
That's all I do.
We've made fools of ourselves.
multifamily.
Brett, aren't you breathing?
We're all right.
We're all ready to go.
I've been,
Well, the next meeting will be June 28th. I may or may not be here. It depends on my internet connection.
I just need to double check and I'll get back to you guys.
Will be abstaining from the vote on one issue, because I sold the property.
Which one?
It's the corner of Boyce and Memorial Drive, Boyce and Norris Drive.
But really, it's like.
The old golf property,
The asparagus farm?
yes,
Did that finally sell?
yes.
Those are.
What do they plan on doing?
Can I tell them what they're gonna do?
They applied.
The gentleman that owns the storage units across the railroad tracks to the south bought the property. He's gonna put a few more storage units in, and then he wants the rest of it to be development,
You want to talk to Jim?
whatever,
Commercial, buddy.
commercial development.
gas station.
Casey.
No, it won't be a bad.
I'm sure. Hi, guys. Thank you. Take care. Have a good memorial.